welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the NDepend Stack Analysis tool. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at two different things. One, we're going to look at a very simple way to get NDepend up and running for one of your .NET solutions. But then we're going to switch our focus on how to run NDepend from Nant or the command line so that you can add that to part of your CI process or part of your build process. I know I found that using NDepend is great. I like using the IDE, but at the end of the day, I wanted to run as part of my CI, and that was the first thing I wanted to know how to do, was how to launch from CI. So I have the NDepend.com website here. NDepend.com has a lot of information about the product and the various different things you can do, as well as precise documentation on what all the various different metrics are and how you should interpret them. If you're looking to download it and you want to try it out, take a look at NDepend.com. This here is the NDepend IDE. I've already got it set up so I can get it rolling. We're going to take a look at the Lucene.NET code base. And as you can see, I've already ran it once, but we'll actually set it up and we'll walk through the basic setup for this. To do this, what we need to do is come here, and this is the Project Properties tab, and we're going to have it scan a solution file for us. And as you can see from the other page, we're looking at the Lucene.NET source code, and when I choose the .sln for Lucene, it will inspect the solution, determine how many assemblies are going to be generated from the solution, as well as all the various referenced assemblies, and it will include those in two different lists for you. So let's go ahead and save this. The next tab is the Analysis tab. This tab allows you to provide a project name, where to put the output, things like that. We're not going to worry about comparison or code coverage right now. Then finally, you can create a report. It will display, you can say display the report when I'm done. You can even provide your own XSLT if you want it to format the output in a special manner. And you have the ability to choose all the information that's being reported on. Personally, I think there's a lot of information here, but normally I don't want to see it all. So I tend to narrow it down to just a few different core metrics. I'm mostly interested in my CQL queries for my CI runs. So let's go ahead and choose the 4 we want. Let's reorder them as we want them. Let's go ahead and click Save. So now we've set up our NDepend. Let's go ahead and rerun this real quick. Now, as you can see here, when NDepend is done doing its analysis, it will launch and open up a web page to show you all the information. You can get some very basic information here: number of IL, lines of IL, number of lines of code, the output, the assemblies, the results of all your CQL queries. We're not going to focus too much on this right now. We'll come back to this at later episodes and do some more deeper dives into how to use and read NDepend. So let's go ahead and let's minimize this. Now this is the configuration file for NDepend. What's really nice about NDepend is it stores all the information needed to run it within a config file, which will minimize the amount of command line options and various switches you'll have to push in. But it also allows you to port this from machine to machine or environment to environment. Taking a look at this, the first thing you should notice is that we have absolute paths any place you see things. NDepend, when you set up your configuration file, requires that you have absolute pathing. It will not work if you try to do relative pathing. And we're going to see how this is both an issue and how to resolve it later on down the road in this episode. We're not going to spend a lot of time in the config file here. If you want to peer through this later after the episode, I'll have this included for you. You can do that. So now we want to switch focus to how to set up Nant Script so that we can actually run NDepend. I've got a basic Nant Script here. It's got a single target. If you've not seen or used Nant in the past, go ahead and check out one of our many other casts that talk about how to use Nant and how to use it as part of your building process. I'm going to provide 2 properties. One is a property that will tell us how to find the NDepend console. The other is a property that will tell us how to find our configuration file that we generated through the NDepend IDE. Once I've done that, I need to provide the information to actually run the console executable and provide it the config file. So here's the executable. Here's the path to the configuration file. And I'm going to go ahead and give an argument of hide the console just to kind of hide the NDepend console. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and run our script. So here I've got a standard Nant command, which will basically call build file and give it the build file. I'm not going to provide the default target because it's already included as part of my project file. Let's go ahead and run this. So it's finished running, and we should be able to bounce back to Windows Explorer and take a look at the output that was generated. And here's my config file that we've got, and here's the NDepend output. When you go into the NDepend output, you'll notice that there's a whole slew of XML and HTML files generated. These are all the results of the various things that NDepend did. You'll also notice there's a folder here called 2009-10. NDepend will create a series of folders based on the month and year, so it can store the history of all your previous runs, so that later on you can do comparative analysis over a period of time. And one thing that gets generated is this NDepend report, same report we've seen before, so we're not going to spend any time on that. Now, as I pointed out a minute ago, NDepend will create the output and take the assemblies from the absolute path that you used when you actually set up your configuration file. Although this might work in your own environment, it's probably not ideal for some kind of CI environment where the paths are more than likely 100% different, or better yet, the environments of all your other developers on the team, because highly unlikely that they all have the same path set up on their machines as you do. So we need to figure out a way that we can push in new paths for the output file as well as the input files. The output file will be where to find, or where to place the results, and the input would be where to find the various DLLs that you're going to scan. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that real quick by bouncing back to our build script. In order to do this, all we have to do is add a couple extra properties here. The first property, path to source files. This tells me where to find the Lucene binaries that I'm going to scan. If you had files that were in multiple different locations, you would just create multiple different properties enumerating each of the various locations. And the other is path output file. And what you should pay attention to here is this path is different from the default path, and this will allow me to very cleanly show that I can provide this information and it will actually work for me. Then once you do that, you need to provide two more command line arguments. The first is outdir. This will take and provide where the output, all the results, and the other is inders. And this is a white space separated list of locations, and in my case I only have one, so I'm just going to provide one. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's rerun our script. I ran that, and you should see pretty quick this right here. This build failed. What happened? Bad command line argument, invalid option. What's really nice about the NDepend command line utility is if you do provide a wrong command, it actually spits out very intelligent errors telling you exactly what's wrong. In our case here, you'll see that I have white space within my pathing. So what we want to do is actually provide the ability to escape that information. Did I provide the wrong? Oops, forgot the semicolon. So now our NDepend script is finished running. And to illustrate that actually did output to a different location, we can go in here and we can see that we only had one of them. And if I bounce up one extra level, you'll see I now have a newly formed output directory that has my new information. It should only have one in here, and sure enough it does. So you can see that setting up NDepend is pretty straightforward to run. It does take a bit to get used to and a bit to understand the what all the data that's being presented to you, and we'll review that in future episodes. But we then take a look at how you can actually run NDepend from your command line, and we took a look at how you can configure so that you can change the locations of the various files being used, so that you don't have to worry about the hard coding or absolute pathing being the same on every box that you want to run your configuration from. So I hope you learned something, and until next time.